Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Matt Shea broadcasting live from Olympia with your daily update from the Capitol. It's a little bit late tonight to be doing an update, still going strong, and it's 10 o'clock. But just wanted to highlight a couple bills for you that passed out today. One I worked on personally with Representative Jesse Young, House Bill 1584, which deals with something called the interference of ticket sales, where these bots that are put out on the net can go and actually gobble up tickets so the general public doesn't have a chance to get something when they go to a concert or go to a game. And so this bill would prevent those bots from being used, because clearly it's an attempt to manipulate the market, the system. Another bill, 2654, by my good friend Representative Bob McCausland Jr., deals with the Department of Early Learning. In fact, the Department of Early Learning, of all the agencies in state government, has had the most complaints sent to my office times 10. This simple bill would require a determination in writing if there is a complaint, and that would really force, I think, the system to be tipped back the other way in the right balance. Instead of being guilty until proven innocent, those daycare providers would be innocent until proven guilty. That's truly an American thing. Now, at the beginning of this week, I want to set everybody up. It's going to be a lot of late nights. There's going to be a lot of voting going on, a lot of executive sessions and committees as bills get passed out. Between this week and next week, a lot of bills will die in committee. And so this is the week to be very active, making sure you're calling your legislators, making sure you're emailing your legislators on the bills that you want them to vote for, and the bills, more importantly, especially this year, the bills that you want killed in committee. That's very important for everybody that's out there listening. I thank you all for being out there and all the positive comments on these updates. I really appreciate all of those. And I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully a little earlier, with an update. But until then, remember to keep eternally vigilant. May God bless all of you, and keep up the fight. Thanks. Good evening, everybody. This is Matt Shea broadcasting live from Olympia with your daily update from the Capitol. Well, today for most committees was cutoff. Cutoff means that if the bill didn't pass out of committee by today, the bill is dead in committee. So let's talk about the bills that everybody has been wondering about regarding gun control. Dead in committee today, the assault weapons ban. Dead in committee today, the magazine ban. Dead in committee today, the concealed carry ban. That's the good news. Here's some of the bad news. In the Senate, an assault weapons bill, so-called assault weapons bill, passed out of their Judiciary Committee. There is still alive in rules, the so-called safe storage bill, and also there is the bump stock ban that passed over from the Senate as well. Those bills are not going to be heard for another week or two, okay? So that's out into the future. But as of right now, we were successful in killing a lot of these bills in the Judiciary Committee today. It's a huge victory. A lot of people happy about that. But I got to tell you something, folks. This is really important. This is a dress rehearsal for next year. All these bad bills that died in committee this year, they want to bring them back next year. And they want to bring them back with a vengeance. So we got a lot of work to do over the summer. We got a lot of work to do to get people involved and to get off the couch, or all of our freedoms are going to be trampled here in Washington State. So I hope that's encouraging to you and emboldening to you, because we need to stay in the fight. Also, I want to mention the vaccine bills. There's a lot of vaccine freedom folks out there, people that just want to have informed consent. It's not anti-vaccination. It's just saying, hey, look, there are some vaccinations that come with much higher risk, and some that aren't very effective, like, the flu vaccine with a 10% efficacy rate, and they just want to know it. And so a few of my bills would have touched on these issues. And last year, we were told that they weren't given a hearing because they were introduced too late. Well, bills actually carry over from the previous session, and we introduced the bills in time to be heard this year, plenty of time, and they still weren't heard. And that's really unfortunate, because at the very least, these ideas that represent a significant portion of our population should be heard, and people should have the opportunity to voice their views on these kind of things. It really, I think, makes it difficult in our system for there truly to be a circumspect approach to things. It's maddening to me that one person, the head of a committee, can just kill any bill just because. I've introduced in the past a rule that would allow for one bill of a member's choice to be heard every year, so this wouldn't happen. And at least some of these ideas, some of these issues could be put out in the open and people could have their voice heard. It's just simple and just makes sense. But either way, sorry for the delay in the video updates. We've been working very, very long hours, 10 o'clock at night getting done. A lot of bills and things going on behind the scenes. So next week, we are going to have cutoff for the fiscal committees on Tuesday. So that's transportation, capital budget, and appropriations in the House. Then after that, on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and into the weekend, we are going to be voting. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to be voted off the floor. I'm going to give you updates as I get them. Sometimes I may do a couple updates a day. So stay tuned for that. God bless you all out there, and make sure you are eternally vigilant and keep up the fight. Take care. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Matt Shea broadcasting live from Olympia with your daily update from the Capitol. Just want to highlight a few things. First, let's start on the pro-life issues. Really an attack this year on pro-life. Really an attack on life, the first right enunciated in the Declaration of Independence. A few bills to be aware of. 6219, which is what many are calling the Abortion for All bill, literally requiring everyone to pay for abortion in Washington State, no conscientious objection or exemption. And this flies in the face of the Washington State Constitution, the very clear language. Article 1, Section 11 of the state Constitution says that there is an absolute freedom of conscience in all matters of religious sentiment. Article 24 says there's a perfect toleration of religious sentiment. This abides by neither, and essentially forces everyone against their will to fund abortion in Washington State. Horrible bill. Along that same line, Senate Bill 6102, which is an insurance mandate for contraception. Now, this sounds innocuous, but the fact of the matter is contraception includes abortifacients like the Plan B abortion pill. This happened with House Bill 1523 as well, that was passed out. Many of us spoke against it. Many of us voted no. I think there was 38 no votes coming out of the House. But these bills are going to be heard. These Senate bills are going to be heard here coming up shortly. Some are going to be heard tomorrow. In addition to that, Senate Bill 6037, or the Paid Surrogacy Bill, some call it the Rent-A-Womb Bill, allowing women to sell their bodies to allow for a kid to be born and birthed through that process. A lot of concerns with that, a lot of concerns in regards to human trafficking as well, and some of the just significant potentials for abuse there. People don't know these things are happening down here. They really don't. And so this idea of paid surrogacy just really flies, I think, in the face of a lot of different policies we passed in the legislature, and also I think flies in the face of the spirit of the Constitution of the United States. If somebody wants to voluntarily do that, that's fine, but when you start to pay people to do that, that really kind of starts heading down a road we don't want to go down. Also down here in Olympia today, I want to talk about the low carbon fuel standards and the carbon tax. Essentially what is being pushed is a creation of a system where you get credits for maybe reducing carbon or maybe sequestering carbon. And this could take many forms. Some forms like biochar are actually something I support. But having a whole system to regulate an industry based on CO2 just doesn't make any sense, number one. Number two, 92 million tons of CO2 are released every year in Washington State based on the best and most recent information we have. Of that 92 million tons of CO2 that are released, 24 million tons of it come from catastrophic wildfires. The greatest thing we could do to clean our air is to manage our forests better. And everybody in Eastern Washington understands that and knows it. So all these rinky-dink schemes of having a carbon tax and increasing the cost of a gallon of gasoline 20 cents or a low-carbon fuel standard, that is not going to change what these people are advocating be changed, and that is a reduction in CO2 levels. What'll change it is managing our forests, and everybody knows it, and also using biochar from some of our already damaged forests and reducing fuel load to create that biochar that can be used in our agricultural areas and increase crop yield. That's the right answer. That's what right actually looks like. So listen, if you are in the Olympia area, you probably want to be down here tomorrow for some of those bills in regards to abortion. I think you really want to take a look at the voting we're going to be doing for the rest of the week. The fiscal committee cutoff is today for transportation and appropriations both. And tomorrow we really begin the voting process, and that'll last all the way through the end of the week and into the weekend. This is when a lot of things happen. So if you want to be down here, you can look at the voting process in the gallery, or you can come by my office too. Just say hi and check in. Either way, if you can't be down here, at least call or email on these issues and make sure that you are eternally vigilant. God bless all of you, and keep up the fight. Good afternoon, this is Matt Shea broadcasting live from Olympia, Washington with your daily update from the Capitol. Got a lot of things to talk about today. First of all, House Bill 2356 in regards to stem cell therapies. This is going to be a comprehensive update, by the way. I have been off the air for the last week. We've been working late into the morning, 12:30 at night, 2:30 a.m. in the morning to get some of this stuff done and negotiate some of these things. So that's why I've been off the air, literally working all day long without any true long breaks to make a video update. So it's going to be a comprehensive one, so stay tuned. It's going to be about 10 minutes, all right? I'm preparing you. All right, 2356, stem cell therapies. Very interesting that on this bill, 2356, stem cell therapies, they being the Democrats, offered an amendment regarding informed consent for these non-FDA approved procedures. Now here's why this is interesting. We've been working for a very long time in regards to informed consent regarding vaccines. And yet they did it on this bill. They wanted to make sure there was informed consent, but they don't want to do this with vaccines where you just read the insert, which is one of the bills that we have that comes with the vaccine. Seems pretty simple, but they've set the precedent. So check out House Bill 2356. That same language should apply across the board. I think everybody should have informed consent before putting something in their body. All right, moving next now, very quick. Spokane County, we are seeing currently the highest property tax increase in the history of the county. We have, though, a huge budget surplus that has come in here in the last couple weeks. That budget surplus, I say, take $350, $360 million of it and return it to the taxpayers of Washington State, and that would eliminate this huge property tax increase this last year that came as a result of the McCleary fix. I think it's an easy solution, and we have the money to do it. Give the money back to the taxpayers. It just makes sense, doesn't it? Give me a thumbs up if you like that idea, because I like that idea. I want more money in my pocket, and oh, by the way, it's our money to begin with as the people. All right, also, House Bill 2406, election security. A lot of you out there have been working with me on fixing election security issues. One of those things is to make sure that we test ballots every day so we can even detect the most subtle hacking attacks into an individual machine, or even software corruption or firmware corruption as well. We got that amended on to House Bill 2406, and also something we've been working on for a very, very long time, and that is to do audits of the duplicated ballots in the system. For those of you that don't know what a duplicated ballot is, duplicated ballots happen when they feed a ballot into the machine, and because of coffee stain or tear or something, it kicks it out. Then they hand duplicate that ballot, literally hand copy it, and that becomes the official ballot. Well, we had no way to audit between that duplicated ballot and the original ballot. In fact, we'd taken it to court a couple times and lost on that issue. This bill would correct that and make sure that the auditing process is across the board to ensure the integrity of our election system. All right. Also, I want to talk about voter registration. Two bills, 1513, and also 2595. There's been a huge push in regards to voter registration bills here in Washington State. And one of the things that's happening with these bills, to give you kind of an overview, is that they want to essentially register people from birth.
not just 16 years old. One of these bills originally started at birth they want to register. Now that's going to introduce a ton of problems into the system. And oh, by the way, we're having a hard enough time making sure that our voter rolls are cleaned up in the state of Washington. Why would we want to add more to that? It doesn't make sense. So keep an eye on these two bills, 1513 and 2595. They did pass, one of them passed out of the House and is going to be moving in the Senate, it looks like. Yeah. And thank you to all the people that are sending all the angry faces right now, because I'm upset too. And we spoke against that on the floor of the House. Also, House Bill 1144 came up at the very last minute. Here's a little bit of inside baseball. John Kerry, you heard that name right, came and showed up here in Olympia. And all of a sudden, the very next day, this bill came out of nowhere as the final bill that we debated before cutoff, House Bill 1144, in regards to greenhouse gas goals and standards, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And my comment is very simply this. We have one part of Washington State that's pontificating while the other part burns every summer. The clearest, easiest, simplest solution is to manage our forests better. 92 million tons of CO2 is released in Washington State per year. 24 million of it is from catastrophic wildfires. If we manage our forests better, not only will we have cleaner air, we'll have more jobs in rural Washington, and that is a win-win for everybody. Okay, let's get to some of the positive things out there. First, House Bill 2723, in regards to ATV use in rural Washington, this bill would clarify that local governments do indeed have control over their own roads and can create ATV tourism routes all the way from the Idaho border through Okanagan and back into Idaho, which is what a lot of people want. Now, this spans across the board. A lot of people are very supportive of ATV use, especially on these designated trails. So this bill would ensure that local governments, county governments, city governments, and even in some small unincorporated areas, that they would have control over which roads to designate as part of those tourism routes. It is in the Senate right now. It was heard today in the Senate, passed out of the House almost unanimously. In the Senate right now being heard, and appreciate your support on that. That's House Bill 2723. All right, House Bill 2718. A lot of you have been following this, a civil asset forfeiture bill, passed out of the House almost unanimously, and is getting a lot of traction in the Senate, it looks like right now. Civil asset forfeiture is something I think that has been an anomaly and has been detrimental to our Constitution, because essentially what it says is you don't have to be convicted, and yet your property can be taken on a preponderance of the evidence. We have very clear language in the U.S. Constitution, Washington State Constitution, that says that we have due process and that we should not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without that due process. The Civil Asset Forfeiture Bill starts to restore that by requiring reporting on how often and frequently this is happening with local governments, but also by requiring that an impartial adjudicator, not the seizing agency, determines as the first line whether you get your property back or not. In other words, if somebody else was using it at the time and they got caught doing something illegal, that you don't automatically lose your property. So it really, I think, is restoring a balance, and I'm looking forward to this moving through. One of the big civil rights wins, I believe, of this year. Also, I want to talk about House Bill 2338. Okay, this has to do with low-carbon fuel standards, and also House Bill 6203, which is the carbon tax. All right, I'm bringing this up on a good note because the low-carbon fuel standard died essentially this last week before cutoff, but also the carbon tax, which was heard in the Senate, was not moved in the Senate. And today, when the Senate came out with its budget, a carbon tax was not assumed as part of that budget. That means that all intents and purposes, they do not want to go with a carbon tax this year. That's a big victory for the citizens of Washington State who don't want to see their gas prices raised by 20 cents a gallon. Huge victory. We just need to keep messaging on this, keep talking to your legislators. This is something that we do not want to see come up. This carbon tax can have a very huge detrimental impact, not just to rural Washington, but all of Washington State. All right, also, House Bill 2951. This is back on we're on positive stuff right now. A lot of good things happening. House Bill 2951 had to do with missing Native American women and actually making sure that we are looking at this issue in the state of Washington. Many of you don't know that we have a huge missing persons problem in the United States of America, but particularly on Indian reservations. This has occurred, and some of these cases have gone unsolved for years and years, and there really is no reasonable explanation as to why some of the coordination is not occurring that needs to be occurring, and this bill seeks to address some of that. So for those of you out there that are really following the missing persons issue, this was something that is near and dear to my heart, and also I think near and dear to many of your hearts, and we are addressing that issue through House Bill 2951, which passed off the House floor. Also, passing off the House floor was House Joint Memorial 4014, had to do with biochar. Biochar can be used from, you can really, I think you could take the fuel load out of forests. You can use biomass, turn it into biochar, and biochar can be used for all kinds of things. Among those, filtering harmful chemicals, but you can also put it in the soil of our agricultural lands, and what that ends up doing is allowing those lands to hold more water, which increases crop yield. So biochar is like a win-win all the way around. Even some of our charred forests could be turned into biochar, and we can actually turn those catastrophic wildfires into something very good for the agricultural industry here in Washington State. On top of that, and that's we just got a hearing on that today, actually, and it looks like that's going to be moving forward in the Senate. Also moving forward in the Senate is a bill on auditor names. Now, a lot of people have been tracking this over the last couple of years, but county auditors in particular had been putting their names on some of the ballot materials during election years on which they were on the ballot. So they kind of got a double dose. Well, some of these, after a bill I passed a couple of years ago where we eliminated that practice, started making up for it in off-election years. So this bill just simply says you can't do it ever. Keep your name off of the ballot materials when you're sending them out, county auditors, and also Secretary of State. And I think it's a fair bill, but it's also a transparency bill as well. All right, I want to talk about some of the things that you need to be worried about and you need to get active on, okay? Right now, we have House Bill 1523 and House Bill 6102 that deal with abortifacients, okay? These are abortifacients, okay? And what it says is that every insurance policy must fund abortifacients. These are pills and medicines that cause embryonic death, okay? Many of you who are pro-life be very sad at this, that they want to force everybody in Washington State to fund this against their conscience. So those are two bills that we're fighting very hard here in the next few days. Also, 6219, Senate Bill 6219, which would mandate abortion coverage for everybody in Washington State in insurance policies. Again, forcing people to fund against their conscience and their will abortion in Washington State. Now, Article 1, Section 11 of the Washington State Constitution says there should be an absolute freedom of conscience in all matters of religious sentiment. Article 26 of the Washington State Constitution says that there should be perfect toleration of religious sentiment, and yet these bills really fly in the face of it. So we're going to be working on amendments very clearly to address these conscience issues that seem to be coming up all over the place. Also, I want to talk about Senate Bill 6037, which has to do with something that it's kind of unbelievable to me, but it would allow a woman to rent out her womb to a third party to have the baby. Now, I got to tell you something. This is very scary stuff, and I think is getting toward the incidents and badges of slavery when you start talking along some of these lines. And why do I say it? Because in the history of the United States, Irish immigrants, Chinese immigrants, African immigrants that were brought here, some of them immigrated against their will, forced to come here to the United States of America. Some were forced into practices like this where they were paid to have babies for somebody else. I think this is a very dangerous precedent, folks. And again, it's Senate Bill 6037. Makes me sad we're even having a discussion like this. And I think some people are just kind of missing the fact that we're going backward in history here. Also, and lastly, everybody's been asking me about gun bills. Okay, a lot of the bad gun bills died last week. Thumbs up for that. Awesome. Okay, a lot of the gun control bills died last week. There is one that is still kind of moving through the system. Okay, And this is Senate Bill 5992, and that is the bump stock ban, okay? That is moving through the system. It was voted out of committee last week on Thursday, I believe. And it looks like it's moving through the House. This is a Senate version, but it's moving through the House of Representatives. Call your representatives, talk to them about this is setting a very bad precedent where you're banning a piece of plastic. Where else are they going to ban on a gun? They're going to work their way from the buttstock to the foregrip and try to ban every part of it. This is gun control at the very beginning, and everybody that I have read online that has been honest about this, they want to disarm American citizens, and this is one incremental step toward that. I cannot ever vote against the right to bear arms. Just one of the I will tell you that one of the interesting parts that has happened last week, we had a bill in regards to concealed carry. And my good friend Morgan Irwin and my good friend Representative Dave Taylor, both of them worked on it. Morgan Irwin's from the 31st District, Dave Taylor from the 15th District, worked on an amendment, and this is a great positive, that was accepted on the floor of the House that would allow 18-year-old military veterans to have a concealed carry permit in Washington State. That is a huge expansion of the right to bear arms for our military veterans. It is an awesome outcome, and a lot of you probably haven't even read about that in the paper, but it is a big deal, and it was thanks to all of you getting involved out there and all of you writing and talking to your legislators and emailing them and showing up here in Olympia. So remember, in conclusion, remember, be ever vigilant in the defense of freedom and liberty. God bless all of you. Thank you for watching. Hopefully get some more updates here in the next couple of days. God bless all of you, and keep up the fight.